Hey guys, I'm Tori. So when it comes to saving money, most people think about little ways here and there that they can save a couple bucks. Like riding your bicycle instead of driving your car to save some gas money, or buying off-brand food instead of name-brand food in the grocery store to save some money that way, or maybe couponing. Anything works. All these things are great and they really add up, and I encourage you all to try them out. However, to be most effective with saving money, you should really look at your biggest expenses on a monthly basis and see how you can reduce those. For most people, their biggest expense is rent. There are several ways that you can reduce the amount you pay in rent, like you can find a roommate to split your rent with, or you can move to a different neighborhood that is cheaper, or you can live with your parents and get free rent if that's an option for you. These three things can be very effective, and I encourage you to try them if there are opportunities for you. However, you can also save money by not moving at all from your current situation, by renegotiating your rent. Most people don't realize that this is a possibility, and today I'm going to explain how you can do it too. Earlier this year, I was able to save $2,400 by renegotiating my rent with my landlord. I'm going to show you how I did it and how you can do it too, but first I want to put into perspective how much money $2,400 really is. If you were to put this money into a high interest rate savings account that's generating 2% a year, you would need $120,000 to generate $2,400 a year. In reality, it is even more than that because interest income is taxed, while the amount you paid for your rent is already taxed. So to get the real number, you would divide $120,000 by 1 minus your tax rate to get how much you actually would need. But anyways, let's hop into it. Oh, but first, quick disclaimer, all situations are different, so what worked for me might not work exactly for you, and you really need to use your own judgment to determine whether or not you should go on forth with this. I don't want you to be mad at me if your relationship with your landlord is tarnished after you try to renegotiate your rent or anything goes wrong in any way. I'm just a guy on the internet giving you some advice, but whether or not you follow my advice is up to you, and you cannot really be mad at me for anything like this. Alright, now let's hop into it. First, you need to make sure that you have the right timing. If you're in the middle of a lease, you will not be able to renegotiate your lease because you already agreed to pay a certain amount and you must fulfill that promise. The right time to do this is right before your lease renews. Most landlords require 60 days notice before the end of your lease so you can tell them whether or not you intend on renewing your lease or moving out. I think you should have these talks with your landlord about a month before this period, so a month before 60 days is about 90 days before your lease is up. Of course, this is a lot different if you are renting month to month. If you're renting month to month, I guess you can have this negotiation at any time. If you're a month-to-month renter, you can even leverage a longer lease agreement in exchange for lower rent because your landlord would appreciate, knowing that they have you legally bound to a longer period of time and might be willing to give you lower rent in exchange for that commitment. Next, you'll want to assess your relationship with your landlord. If you know your landlord personally, this is a lot easier. On the other hand, if the owner of your home uses a property management company, then this can be tricky to do. The property management company wants to keep the owner of the home happy through high revenues, and lowering your rent, it kind of contradicts this initiative on their behalf. Renegotiating your rent is definitely a lot easier if you have direct communication with the landlord. After you've assessed your relationship with your landlord, you really need to think about how you want to bring up this conversation. I think it is best to have this conversation face to face and avoid sending this over email if possible. If you send an email, then your landlord can easily delay your conversation a couple days or a couple weeks even, and you lose leverage when this happens. If you're having the conversation face to face, then you're kind of pressuring your landlord into giving you a response right there on the spot, which puts you in that advantage. So I think it is best to have this conversation face to face first. If that's not a possibility, try to do it over the phone. If that's not a possibility, then you can resort to email or whatever other form of communication you have. When you're ready to have this conversation with your landlord, you should really back up your case with data by looking at other comparable units in your area. You can hop on websites like Zillow to find other units available to rent. You should look for rentals that are comparable in size, location, and amenities. The closer a rental is to an exact match, the better case you will have with your landlord. Feel free to print these listings out and bring them physically when you have these conversations with your landlord to show them your reasoning behind why you think you should be paying a lower rent. These should also be rentals that you are genuinely considering moving into if things don't really work out at your current rental. While you're talking to your landlord, you should also try to emphasize how good of a tenant you've been. If you've always been respectful, quiet, and make your payments on time, then your landlord will want to keep you as a long-term tenant, and they will be a lot more receptive to these rent renegotiations. On the flip side, if you're annoying, loud, and pay late, then your landlord won't miss you if you move out, and they will be quick to kick you out and find a replacement. So they will immediately call your bluff when you're trying to renegotiate your rent. So if you've had 0 complaints and always pay on time, then definitely bring this up and talk to your landlord about how you want to be here longer, and they want you there too. So things should work out and they should be more receptive to lowering your costs. Lastly, you should determine how much of a discount you should ask for. The number cannot be too drastic or you will be immediately shut down and there will be no room for negotiations. The amount discounted should be backed up with data from the comparables research you did earlier. You can very easily identify the comparables, take the average, and ask for that amount. I'd say that anything over 20% or so, your landlord might disregard you completely and they might not be willing to have any further negotiations. But if you come in at something that is very reasonable, then your landlord might take it out front, or they might meet you halfway, which is still a significant amount that you're saving. Also, if you had a signing bonus when you signed your 1-year lease, then you can definitely ask for this bonus again. It is a very common promotion to give a tenant the first month free when they sign a 1-year lease. So when you renew this lease, if you had that the first time around, you can definitely ask for it again, which is pretty significant. If you think about it, it is about an 8% discount per year because it is 1/12, which really adds up to a lot. And those are all of my tips. This whole process really only takes a couple hours. You only need about an hour to research the comparables and formulate your messaging, and about another hour to coordinate this meetup with your landlord and talk to them. So really these 2 or 3 hours that you spend on research and whatnot can save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year. So it is very worthwhile to ask. But once again, I encourage you to assess your own situation, assess your relationship with your landlord, assess how good of a tenant you've been, and assess whether or not you're actually overpriced or not in your unit. If you do think that you're in a good position to renegotiate your rent, I encourage you to go for it. You know, the worst that can happen is that they say no. If you're genuinely looking at moving out, then this is, you know, a no-risk situation. And I really encourage you to at least ask, you know, because you never know when they'll say yeah, and it's definitely worth asking. Speaking of asking, I ask you to like this video if you learned something about being a tenant, renting, or if you're thinking about doing this yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I will make sure to answer them as long as I can. And I really wish you the best of luck. I hope you save a lot of money. Oh, so I need a thumbnail for this video, and it probably should be something like attention grabbing. So I'm gonna pose with a lot of cash. So I'm gonna act surprised, like this is the amount of money you can save by renegotiating your rent. Like, okay, hopefully I can make a thumbnail from that. All right, well, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. Good luck again, and leave any comments if you have any questions. And subscribe if you like these types of videos. I'm gonna make more types of personal finance videos. I'm a very frugal guy, and I'm here to share my tips with you guys. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.